in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. In my past life, I was an agriculture student. On the eve of graduation, I was practically living in the experimental fields. I never expected that after just going to my advisor's office to sign some forms, I would return to find my fields completely destroyed by 2 camels that appeared from nowhere. I was so furious I collapsed and lost consciousness. When I woke up, I had been reborn into the Chen family, a household that was dirt poor. I thought this life would be about farming, doing business, and getting rich. But unexpectedly, when I was 8 years old, my grandfather, a formidable man, led a raid on the imperial grain supply and raised the flag of rebellion. From then on, my entire family lived as fugitives, constantly on the run, wanted, never knowing if we'd live to see the next day. I thought my life's script had been rewritten into one of uprising and fighting for the throne. But then, when I was 12, my grandfather's main base in Pi City was ambushed by imperial forces. The families of the rebel army stationed there had to flee in a panic. After 3 months and 8 days of running, I and 27 other children became the biggest spoils of war. From that attack, to protect us children, my mother and the other ladies split up, running in different directions to lure the imperial troops away. At first, they told us to wait in place for grandfather to send reinforcements. But the relief force was ambushed. We hid on the mountain, watching helplessly as they were trapped in the Hulu Gorge and burned to ashes. Not a single person survived. I looked sadly at the children huddled in the cave, lost and terrified. My life script was officially confirmed: extreme wilderness survival. This chance at survival was bought with the lives of so many. I had to seize it. We had to survive. But with enemies on all sides, where was our future? Where was our escape? The reinforcements were all dead. Who could we rely on now? The imperial court had spread a dense net. For the past 2 months, led by our mothers, we had scattered and fled, only to be herded back together. Looking at the troop movements now, continuing to run meant walking right into a trap. I gritted my teeth and led the children back. The most dangerous place is the safest place. They thought we would flee desperately, so they would deploy heavy troops along our escape routes. Instead, I wanted to return to Pi City. As expected, the way back was much easier. We followed the mountain paths, changing out of our clothes and jewelry. We stripped ill-fitting clothes from the dead, put them on, and begged as we walked. Finally, we reached the wooden cabins I had left on Lu Mountain, on the outskirts of Pi City. In my previous life, I died because my experimental fields were destroyed, dying of pure rage. Therefore, my lingering obsession in this life is to complete my agricultural experiments. But the seeds for those fields had been given to me by my professor. Now, I could only start over from scratch. Fortunately, my mother in this life doted on me. Although she found my hobby of farming to be rather peculiar, she respected it. She secretly built 3 wooden cabins for me on the mountain and equipped them with some living supplies. Next to the cabins, she even cleared 1 mu of land so I could plant things. Her only request was that while farming was fine, I had to avoid being seen and couldn't let outsiders know about this hobby. Because of my mother's support back then, we now had a place to shelter. The bundles on the ground were opened one by one. The clothes inside needed to be washed, and the jewelry had to be hidden carefully. Just the thought of having to feed these 20-odd children made my head ache. It was quickly proven that leading the children back was the right decision. Not long after we returned, I went into the city to beg and gather news. I heard the court had sealed off the Wei River area and was rounding up children our age en masse. Thousands of children had already been captured, and countless were injured or wrongfully killed in the process. I anxiously led the children back to the mountain, staying up all night. A few days later, 5 of the older children came to find me. When I say older, the eldest was only 16, and the youngest was just 4 months older than me. In my previous life, these were all minors. We have to do something, they said. My mind was a mess, and I've never been good at comforting people. After a long pause, I finally said, children just need to focus on growing up safely. 16-year-old Victor Lin sighed. But us staying alive means many other children won't get to grow up. Children are forced to mature early in times of war. I vaguely knew what they wanted to do, and I also knew that stopping them would be selfish. We were children, born of our parents. The children being captured were also children, born of their parents. No one was nobler than anyone else. Lady Cecilia? Victor Lin said, we will travel far from here and find a way to get caught. We'll tell the court that the other children died on the road, that only the 5 of us survived. That way, those other children might have a chance to live, and the rest of you here will be safer. Logic told me this was the right thing to do. Sacrificing 5 lives to give hope to so many others was worth it. But my emotions made my mind waver, driving me nearly mad. 30,000 refugees forced into cannibalism. My grandfather stole grain just to help them survive. Was he wrong? The court's taxes were heavy. Beyond the standard taxes, there was the head tax, forced labor, and endless supplementary land taxes. There was the poll tax, the righteous granary tax, the farm-to-stock tax, the gate tax, the silk and salt tax, the wine tax, the market tax. The land was plentiful, but the people grew poorer. In a year of bad harvest, all they could do was wait to die. If they had food to eat, who would risk their lives to rebel? So, were they wrong? No one was wrong. No one. Rebelling wasn't wrong, and being their children wasn't wrong. But now, someone had to bear the bitter consequences. Let me go, I said. Grandfather is the leader, and I am the eldest daughter of the Chen family. Perhaps I'm more valuable than you. Victor shook his head. Lady Cecilia, you are different. You were raised in the inner chambers and rarely seen. The locals might not recognize you, but it's different for us. We were always out and about. If we stay here too long, it's inevitable we'll be recognized. Then, all our previous efforts will be for nothing. Since it's bound to happen, sooner is better than later. He smiled. Lady Cecilia, though you are a girl, I admire you deeply. You have plans, you have resolve. You will lead them to survival. Actually, on the way back to Pi City, I noticed someone might have recognized us. We already planned to leave. Being able to save thousands of children now, for us, it's a blessing. Lady Cecilia, don't cry. Since ancient times, what war hasn't had sacrifice? What reform hasn't been paid for in blood? To change the world, a price must be paid. His name was Victor. He had read the classics of the sages, and he was only 16 years old. As he left, he said he was no longer a child. Victor, 16 years old. Gi Chu Haoying, Zhangjiang, Shan Song. After they left, I repeated their names over and over, hoping to see them again one day. In the days that followed, I continued to lead the younger children into the city to beg. First, it was to trade the clothes and jewelry we'd taken off for daily necessities. Second, it was to see if we could find any news about the rebel army. Most of the time, we found no news. Most of the time, we begged for nothing. Only occasionally would we get enough scraps to survive the day. War has a devastating impact on a region's economy. After the battle, prices skyrocketed, and life was hard for everyone. Stray children gathered in groups on the streets. Many others couldn't even beg for food, they just huddled miserably in corners, waiting for the day they would silently disappear into the dark alleys. Then, one day, their bodies would be found, carted off by the night soil or slop wagons, and dumped in the mass graves. In my small cabin, there was no food. There were only basic necessities like pots and pans, a few changes of clothes, and some grain and vegetable seeds that I had stored. I am not a goddess, nor do I have a magical, golden touch. Even if I could command a group of children to plant seeds, I couldn't make them bear fruit in a few days to solve our immediate crisis. No one had it easy. The food we begged for was too little, not enough for more than 20 people. Even though they were only children, and even though they were very well behaved and ate very, very little, it still wasn't enough. I could only watch as they grew weaker. After another 5 days passed, I completely gave up any hope of finding news about the rebel army. We couldn't go on like this. I couldn't pin my hopes on an uncertain future. I couldn't just drift through life day by day. I had to find a way to mobilize our current resources so these children could live a little longer. Thankfully, it was summer. It was such a blessing that it was summer. Although life on the mountain was hard, compared to the cold, hopeless winter, summer offered much more hope. Including me, there were now 22 children left. The oldest, at 12, was me. The youngest, who had just turned 5, was Julian Zhao. What does 5 years old even mean? In modern times, that's the age of a kindergartner. The age where they see a toy they want and throw a full-blown tantrum on the floor, crying and screaming until they get it. But 5-year-old Julian Zhao was already following me up the mountain to pick mushrooms. Lu Mountain was a rich and bountiful place. Not far from the cabin was a stream that made the surrounding land very fertile. This was one of the reasons I had chosen this spot for my experimental fields. After all, back then, with my mother's support, I had many options. Outside the cabin was a dense forest. After it rained, edible wild mushrooms sprouted everywhere. But many wild mushrooms are poisonous. So even though I saw them all over, I could only stick to the one or two types I recognized. They were all children. I couldn't risk taking them with me. The following days were busy and chaotic. I led a group of kids to plow fields, plant vegetables, and catch wild chickens and rabbits. After the rain, we'd go pick mushrooms. Sometimes we'd also forage for other mountain delicacies. At first, our harvest was just enough to feed ourselves, but gradually we had a small surplus. Then I found a few wild tea trees. After trying it, the taste wasn't bad. You have to understand, most wild tea plants are toxic. Drinking too much causes diarrhea. Luckily, these ones seemed safe. We used the mountain spring water to brew the wild tea and sell it. Slowly, life became a little more bearable. We waited until prices stabilized and things settled down. I took the clothes and jewelry I had hidden and crossed the 10-mile mountain path to Heng City to sell them. We had tried selling some jewelry and clothes before when we were desperate, but the pawn shops drove the prices down so aggressively that I held most of it back. This time, there was good news. The 5, including Victor, were apparently still alive. They were considered important hostages and seemed to have slightly shifted the tide of the war. The bad news was that the rebel army was suffering continuous defeats. According to rumors, they were on the brink of collapse. How did this news affect me? Before, I would have been sick with worry, unable to eat or sleep. But after walking that 12-mile mountain path and returning, although these matters still weighed on my mind, I fell into a dead sleep the moment I lay down. Waking up to the morning light, I finally understood in the face of survival, everything else is trivial. After that, we just lived day by day in a daze. The next year, my grandfather finally led his men and found us. At that time, I was leading the children in harvesting rice. The rebel generals searched the crowd for their children. When they realized they were still alive, they were choked with emotion. But seeing them skillfully working the fields, they broke down and wailed. That day, the birds on the mountain were so startled they migrated in flocks. My grandfather held my hand, his eyes brimming with tears. "Sixi, grandfather has failed you." Tears welled in my eyes, but I swallowed them back. I didn't dare tell him that, truth be told, I had wanted to run away long ago. Wouldn't I have lived better on my own than dragging this whole group along? I had tried to sneak off several times, but Julian always found me, crying. This child, Julian, left a deep impression on me. Among the 20-odd children, he was the youngest and the most beautiful. He was well-behaved, fair-skinned, and as pretty as a girl. I actually thought he was a girl at first. But this was the child who, at 5 years old, had followed us through the mountain passes. His feet rubbed raw and stuck to his shoes. Every step left a bloody footprint, yet he never complained, not until he collapsed from a high fever. At 5 years old, what was I doing? We were forced to pause our escape. After comforting the other children, I piggybacked him to find a doctor. The process of finding a doctor was not smooth. Some things happened. We walked a long way. I fell several times, and it hurt so much that tears streamed down my face. But thinking back on it now, I just feel that perhaps I wasn't mature enough then. It was just a few falls. The scars faded, the pain quickly subsided. It was still much better than being one of the people who had lost their lives. I still remember my crying woke Julian from his delirium. The first thing he said when he woke up was, "Sister Sishi, put me down. Go on your own." A 5-year-old child who was sometimes too scared to even sleep alone. Yet he was telling me to put him down, to abandon him. He was prepared to face the unknown, even death, all by himself. Of course, I didn't leave him. Even though, at that moment, I was so hurt and exhausted that the thought had genuinely crossed my mind. I got medicine for him. When we reached Lu Mountain, he stuck to me like a shadow. For safety, even though we had 3 cabins, I had all the children sleep in one room. There were bodies everywhere, on the bed and on the floor. The youngest children and the 2 little girls slept on the bed, while the slightly older boys slept on mats on the floor. We had carried some door panels back from deserted villages, scrubbed them clean, and dried them. During the day, they were propped against the wall, and at night, we laid them on the floor. With cotton blankets, we slept soundly. By age, Julian, being the youngest, was supposed to sleep on the bed, but he refused. I had no choice but to let him sleep on a mat on the floor next to me. When I slept, he slept. When I woke, he would startle awake too. After we settled in, he had nightmares every night, so I would lie there and sing lullabies for everyone. Later, when they were a bit older, I gradually had them sleep separately. But even after separating, the room was still packed with bodies lying on the bed and on the floor. Naturally, Julian still slept on the floor with me, and I lulled him to sleep every night. Heavens be my witness, I was a perfectly straight, innocent woman who had never even been in a relationship, yet after rebirthing, I was forced to be a mother to a bunch of kids. At this reunion, grandfather and the generals planned to take the children away. Even though they were currently losing ground and couldn't stay in one place for long, a broken ship still has 3 gin nails. Besides, our location wasn't absolutely safe either. Since they had found us, it meant the imperial court might find us too. I had just always been very careful to protect the children, keeping them hidden in the mountains, not letting them be seen. I was the one who handled everything at the forefront. When grandfather suggested taking me with them, I was silent for a long time. Then, I took out a sweet potato vine and a small bag of hybrid rice seeds to show him. Researching hybrid rice was what I had always been doing. This was also why I didn't plant in a garden or on a more convenient, fertile farm. I had coincidentally discovered wild rice growing here. To guard against any mishap, I had built the cabins and started my crops not far from where I found that rice, tending to it meticulously. I have been trying to increase rice yield and breed new crop varieties. These past few years I've fed these kids thanks to these 2 things. So, I was thinking, if no one had to suffer from hunger anymore, perhaps there would be less war in the future. Right, I knew full well that human wars weren't caused solely by starvation, but also by oppression, exploitation, natural disasters, and human calamities. But you just do what you can. You can't do nothing just because your own strength is small, can you? Grandfather, the rebel army is always on the move, fighting everywhere. It's too unstable. My research needs time and a stable environment. Grandfather looked over the sweet potato vine and the rice seeds. You fed all those kids just with these? Not entirely. When we fled, everyone brought some jewelry. I've pawned all of it. A few pieces were precious heirlooms. If grandfather has the means, please find a way to redeem them. At this, I took out the carefully preserved pawn tickets. Except for my items, the rest were all pawned. Here are the tickets. Grandfather took the slips, stunned. You don't want to redeem your own things. Possessions are external. Nothing is more important than people. Seeing his sad expression, I smiled brightly. If one day I succeed and the world is at peace, what couldn't I have? When that time comes, grandfather can just gather all the treasures in the world for your granddaughter to choose from. My words made his eyes turn red. He changed the subject. Are these things you're researching really useful? As far as I know, the best fields currently yield only 2 she of rice per moo. After my improvements, I dare not say too much, but I am confident I can quadruple the yield to 8 she per moo. If things go well, 10 she is possible. The measurements in this dynasty were the same as in ancient times. 1 she was 10 do about 120 jin, that much. Grandfather's hand trembled as he held the bag of seeds. I showed him the sweet potato vine again. And this vine grows a crop called the sweet potato. It's not picky about soil, it can grow in sandy land, and it's easy to cultivate. The estimated yield is 30 she per moo. Seeing his breathing quicken, I helped him sit down. I don't know if I can grow it well, but grandfather, I want to stay and try. Wait for the day grandfather unites the world. This will be the best celebratory gift I can give you. What you are doing is vital. Grandfather panted for a moment, then said, I will leave a few men to protect you. There's no need. Leaving men behind will only attract attention. I just hope grandfather can bring peace to the world soon. Only then can I be at ease. I watched the group leave with a heavy heart, then turned back, went to my room, and slept for 2 straight days and nights. I only got up once to drink a bowl of cold water before falling back asleep. Anyone who has raised children's how exhausting it is. Now, I was finally free. Honestly, I don't even know how I survived the past 5 years. Eating, bathing, washing clothes, and working with a bunch of kids, sometimes even having to stop them from fighting. Waking up and seeing the sunrise again, I knew my new life had finally begun. To be honest, discovering the wild rice seemed plausible, but finding the sweet potato vine, that, I couldn't understand for a long time. Sweet potatoes were widely grown in my era, but here, no one had ever seen this crop. This proved its origin was the same as in my previous life, introduced from abroad. In my old world, I think sweet potatoes were introduced and cultivated around the Ming dynasty. But I didn't get it. The Ming dynasty got them because their maritime industry was developed. This world's sailing technology seemed incredibly primitive at this point. So where did this come from? Of course, human thought is built on a full stomach. First, it didn't matter where it came from, it was edible. Since I had it, I had to try planting it. I was actually worried if it would even survive. After all, when I found it, it was being used as rope to tie cargo on a fishing boat, looking very pitiful. Just like that, I stayed and farmed peacefully. My needs were simple, so I rarely went down the mountain and didn't attract any attention. Life was quite stable. Occasionally, if I needed supplies, I'd carry a cask of cold tea down the mountain to sell. After selling it, I'd trade for necessities and return. Life on the mountain was peaceful, aside from the snakes and insects, but for a farmer these were manageable. Later, grandfather won the war and captured the capital. A new dynasty was established. The dynasty's name was Da Sheng, the era named Tianfu. In the second year of Tianfu, I was 25 years old. In this era, I was a certified old maid. My father, Reginald Chen, sent letters every day urging me to come to the capital. At first, he said he'd found me the most handsome husband, broad shoulders, slim waist, fair skin. Then he said his health was failing recently and he missed me. Finally, my father angrily wrote that if I didn't return, he would personally come, break my legs, and drag me back. After that, even grandfather sent a letter saying he wanted to see me. I looked at my experimental plots, which were ready for harvest, sighed, and packed some seeds and plants. After getting things in order, I set off for the capital. But after traveling for half a month, I reached the city gates and couldn't get in. "Do you have a travel pass?" I froze. "What?" The guard, seemingly used to this, pointed to a notice posted nearby. "The imperial edict was posted yesterday. Read it yourself." I thanked and went to read the notice, only to learn about this travel pass. It had been implemented just yesterday and not nationwide, but as a trial in the capital. To enter the capital, one needed a pass issued by their local yemen, otherwise, entry was forbidden. A large crowd had gathered by notice, all as shocked as I was. Some had no idea what a travel pass was, asking what it was for and where to get one. Others understood, but the journey was long. Some had traveled for months to get here. Turning back now was too difficult, and they complained bitterly. I was worried and upset. I remembered when grandfather visited me on Lu Mountain, we had discussed this very problem. The capital region is a critical area with heavy traffic. If spies infiltrated and hid, it wouldn't matter on a normal day, but during times of political instability, they would be a major disaster. But simply closing the gates would cause suspicion and panic. I had suggested issuing travel passes, registered and recorded by the yemen. The pass would have to list the bearer's name, age, identity, appearance, reason for travel, and destination. Grandfather's eyes lit up. Excellent. I was kneeling in the dirt weeding, wearing a straw hat at the time. For the specific details, grandfather will need to find reliable people to build the system. How to prevent counterfeiting and bribery to get passes. This could prevent many spies and rebels from causing trouble. We had agreed then that if there was trouble in the capital, they would issue travel passes to strictly control the movement of people. So, the capital was in trouble. I hesitated, wanting to bribe the gate guard. Even if he couldn't let me in, maybe he could pass a message. But I had just turned around when I saw a guard kick a commoner who tried to bribe him to the ground. Herney Wang, daring to bribe an officer in broad daylight. Are you tired of living? Do you know what time it is? Who would dare pass a message for you? Go back obediently and get your pass. Don't cause trouble. The light punishment is being sent back home, the heavy one is execution on the spot. It seemed the capital was truly in trouble. I squinted at the city gate, then turned to leave. This matter was too important to delay. These guards were useless, I had to find someone who could actually get me inside. While my mind was in turmoil, there was a commotion at the gate, but I paid no attention. By the time I snapped out of it, a cavalry unit had burst out of the city, charging straight at me. A fierce wind kicked up. I couldn't dodge in time and collided with a warhorse. Its heavy hoof nearly stomped on my head. The clash of saddles and armor rang out, the horse's neigh mixing with the terrified shout of Julian. Everything dissolved into chaos. When I came to, I was in Julian's arms. I hadn't seen him in years. He had grown tall and strong, much taller than me. His young chest was hot against me. I was stunned for a moment before I found my voice and called his name. Lion? Sister Cece. It's me, it's me. His voice trembled, hovering above my head. I felt his arms tighten around me, his intense warmth making me a little flustered. I patted his back lightly, signaling him to let go. Don't be scared, Sister Cece. I'm fine, I'm not hurt. But Julian wouldn't let go. He buried his head in my neck and mumbled. Sister Cece was almost hurt again because of me. If that happened, I'd rather die to atone. I said angrily. You're so young, why are you always talking about dying? Julian pressed his lips into a smile, his almond-shaped eyes crinkling, looking perfectly obedient. Yes, Sister Cece is right. His smile dazzled me. I steadied myself and pushed the boy away, preventing him from exuding any more charm at me, allowing my intelligence and reason to return. Right, Leon, I need to get into the city, but I don't have a travel pass. Julian suddenly remembered. Sister Cece, I was ordered to come get you. His Majesty. He's not doing well. A loud clap of thunder echoed overhead. Just as we entered the city, the sky opened up. Julian wrapped me in his oversized cloak, and we galloped through the rain straight to the imperial palace. When I dismounted, my legs were numb. I staggered, a few steps, unable to walk. Julian instinctively scooped me up and bounded into grandfather's chambers. This was my first time in the palace. It felt suffocating. The palace maids and eunuchs moved silently with their heads bowed, their footsteps nearly silent. The air was thick with the smell of unknown medicines and precious woods, a dizzying combination. Shadows flickered and overlapped everywhere. I couldn't distinguish anything. Not until my father, Reginald, pushed through. The crowd stood before me. What's wrong? Are you hurt? No, just not used to riding. My legs are numb. My father's eyes were red, as if he'd just been crying. Hearing I was fine, he supported me toward the inner chamber. Your grandfather is waiting. Hurry! Julian stood frozen, looking worried. Sister Cece, I won't see you then. I waved him off, took a moment to rest, and stepped inside. My father called out loudly as we walked. Imperial father, Cece here. Cece is back in the capital. There was no response from within. Seeing me silent, my father impatiently slapped my back. You mute him. Just as I was about to speak, something flew past us. My father instinctively shielded me, but in doing so, he perfectly dodged the incense burner. We stared at each other. My father swallowed. Was that aimed at me? I was about to lose my temper when an old man, barefoot and skeletal but still imposing, walked out from the inner chamber. You idiot! You dare touch her again! My father shrank back, mumbling, I didn't hit her hard. My grandfather grabbed a royal scepter and threw it. Get out! Your son will get out right now. Please take care of your health. Seeing me, grandfather waved and smiled. Cece, come here. I hadn't seen him in years. He had aged so much. His hair was messy, and he stood barefoot on the floor, but his smile was the same as all those years ago, full of vigor. That year, when he was about to raid the grain supply, his arrow knocked, he had waved me over just like that. 17 years. So many ups and downs. It seemed everything had changed, and yet nothing had. When I threw myself into his arms, grandfather patted my back firmly. You're grown up, all grown up. Through his thin robes, I could feel his protruding spine. My heart ached. Grandfather, you haven't been eating properly. Grandfather is old. When you get old, this day comes. He laughed and patted my head. The sweet potatoes and rice you sent to the palace, grandfather tried them all. They're delicious. Those seeds were distributed to several prefectures. They've harvested this year, and the yield has doubled. That sweet potato thing has been harvested too. Grandfather looked relieved. Cece, your contribution this time is enough to have a monument erected for you. After speaking, he took my hand, led me to the bed, lifted the blankets, and opened a secret compartment. The moment it opened, the glittering light of the jewels inside made me squint. This is the dowry grandfather has saved for you. Look, it's all the best, one of a kind items. No one else has these. It's all your dowry. My eyes suddenly stung. I said teasingly, do you sleep on top of this every night? You didn't even think to line it with some medicinal herbs. At least that would be good for your health. Grandfather's memory isn't so good lately. He sadly scratched his thinning hair. What if one day I forget? This was a promise. As if he suddenly remembered something, he shouted, my sweet potato rice. Bring a serving here. Grandfather pulled my hand, making me sit on the floor. You've returned at just the right time. Today, my spirit is still quite good, my mind is still clear. I am old. I've been confused lately. Grandfather mumbled. I was afraid I wouldn't get to see you before I left. It's a good thing you're back. He looked at my dark skin, pained. The children of our family are all fair-skinned. You're the first one to be this dark. A girl with such calloused hands. It's good you're back. Stay in the capital from now on. Don't leave again. We don't need to wander anymore. Thinking of this, grandfather looked guilty. Since you were born, you've never lived a single good day. I thought for a moment and said, actually, your granddaughter feels that just having a smooth journey, being safe and sound, those are already good days. Life in this world is hard enough. I don't dare ask for everything to be perfect. The old man looked at me, then suddenly burst out laughing. He laughed so hard his chest heaved, and he fell back, unable to sit up. Being able to see my Cece before I go, grandfather is so happy. I took this as a compliment and said proudly, but of course. Your granddaughter has been loved by everyone since the day she was born. There was another long silence. I saw the old man cover his eyes with his hand. I asked softly, Grandfather, is the candlelight too bright? The old man turned his back to me, mumbling unhappily. Why isn't my sweet potato rice here yet? I stood up. I'll go check. Before leaving I turned back and said, Grandfather, the floor is cold. Don't lie on the ground. Grandfather waved his hand vaguely in my direction. He said hoarsely, It's good you're back. I leave the rest to you. Even though I knew he couldn't see me, I still paused and nodded. At a time of power transition, the capital was bound to be unstable. He was gravely ill and clearly no longer had the strength to control the situation. When I stepped outside, my father, Reginald, was standing dejectedly at the door. Seeing me, he hurried over. As grandfather's sleeping, he seemed tired. He wanted sweet potato rice. I'll hurry them. My father peeked inside and saw grandfather still lying on the floor. He hesitated, then entered the chamber. He's so old, and in such poor health, yet he still thinks he's a young man in his 20s. Isn't he afraid of catching a cold on the floor? Just then, palace servants arrived with the sweet potato rice and some small side dishes. I took the food container, about to turn back, when I suddenly heard my father cry out in shock, Imperial Father, Imperial Father, Imperial Father, look at me, open your eyes and look at me. People immediately scrambled, carrying the frantic imperial physician into the bedchamber. Holding the food box, I rushed in with the crowd. The old man in the bright yellow robes was right there, but I couldn't reach him, couldn't get to him. The sweet potato rice spilled from the box, scattering across the floor. Wailing erupted from all sides. I just felt that weak, flickering life force before my eyes slowly grow quiet. After that, the palace death knell began to toll. I thought, everyone must go through this. To see him one last time before he died was already a mercy from heaven. But I still couldn't stop the tears. Grandfather had prepared my dowry, he had even chosen the horses, but he never once rushed me to marry. Even my father wrote countless letters scolding me, saying I was too old and it was improper. But only grandfather, he just told me, it's fine. Take your time choosing someone for life. If you don't like this one, we'll just find another. I knew that if grandfather hadn't been holding him back, my father would have dragged me back to be married long ago. In this era, a girl's coming of age ceremonies at 15, and she marries at 15. I was already 25. He might not have understood me, but he truly gave me immense respect and support. And now he is gone. That day when he laughed so hard he fell onto his back, I thought he was just being willful. The truth was, he simply couldn't get up again. And he still never got to eat that bowl of sweet potato rice. Just like that, the high ancestor emperor of Da Sheng, my grandfather, passed away 2 years after founding the nation. For the past few days, I've had splitting headaches. I've been in the palace, unable to sleep all night. I feel this palace rejects me. The newly enthroned young emperor, Arthur Chen, didn't feel that way. He stood guard by my bed, sleeping on a mat on the floor, relentlessly asking me, Sister Cece, can I sleep on the bed? Are you asking for a beating? Sister Cece, but I am the emperor now. I opened my bloodshot eyes, looked at him, and sneered. Or perhaps I should sleep on the floor. Don't. Fine, I won't get up, I'll just sleep on the floor. He paused, then said pitifully, Sister Cece, this floor is really hard. You're already this old. Playing pitiful won't work. Arthur was quiet for a moment then said, Sister Cece, if an assassin comes, wouldn't they kill the person on the bed first? After all, what kind of emperor sleeps on the floor, right? I was so sleepy I could die. I mumbled perfunctorily, just burn plenty of joss paper for me during the Qingming festival. That'll be thanks enough. Arthur pouted. What good is burning paper? I will find you several ghost husbands, all tall, strong and handsome. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. My eyelids were drooping. I murmured, then I thank you in advance. In my days, I heard Arthur say, Sister Cece, who do you think will be the one to chop off my head? Second uncle or third uncle? That question snapped me wide awake. I turned to look at him. You cunning brat. Keeping me in the palace, eating and sleeping together, are you using me as a hostage? Arthur looked guilty. Not entirely. We haven't seen each other in so many years. Missed you. I thought about his words. There seemed to be some sincerity in them. I knew what he was afraid of. Grandfather's sudden passing left him on an unstable foundation. My father, Reginald, and my third uncle, Marcus, had glorious military achievements and prestige in the army. He was young, his grip on the court was weak, and he couldn't control the old officials. His two uncles, he both respected and feared them. Sister Cece, I feel like I'm back in those anxious, uncertain days. But back in those dark times, just opening my eyes and seeing you made me unafraid. Sister Cece, you seem omnipotent. You make people feel at ease. I know this is wrong, but I'm afraid. Those court officials, they look respectful, but most have their own agendas. They bully me for being young, thinking I can't do anything to them. And the truth is, I can't do anything to them, at a time like touched. Who can be easily moved? This is the time for bestowing favors. I sighed. There you go again. You've made a habit of pretending. What's the use of acting pitiful? After I said that, Arthur didn't argue. I watched the tree shadows flicker outside the window, like ghosts drifting about, waiting for a chance to take a life. I shouldn't meddle in politics. Although I had raised Arthur alongside Julian, affection is only affection, if both sides acknowledge it. If one side doesn't, it becomes a deadly weapon, a knife to the back. But he was the emperor. He shouldn't, and couldn't, live in suspicion and fear. You know, I lived on the mountain for years. I only know how to farm. I don't understand grand philosophies. But the day grandfather passed, my father and third uncle stood vigil in the palace. Their trusted men guarded the city outside, their retinues never left their sides, their swords were at their waists. If they wanted the throne, killing a few people wouldn't be hard. They just had to lock the palace gates, kill everyone inside who needed killing, and the next morning, wash the blood from the floors with well water. The new dynasty wouldn't include your name. But they didn't. The swords in their hands struck fear into those with ulterior motives, preventing them from acting rashly, and securely placed you on the throne. Wouldn't killing you and usurping the throne be easier than starting a rebellion? Why put you on the throne just to pull you down and earn a bad name? A light flickered in Arthur's eyes. Sister Cece, you mean? I don't know. I turned my head away. This is something your majesty must consider and judge for yourself. This country is vast. You cannot do everything alone. In the future, when you need to use someone, are you going to ask others every time, is this person trustworthy? This time, Arthur finally fell silent. I thought I could finally get some sleep, but it wasn't long before he whispered again, Sister Cece, are you asleep? I can't sleep. Can I please sleep on the bed? I really wanted to jump down and beat this kid so badly his own mother wouldn't recognize him. The next day, Arthur mercifully allowed me to go home. I thought the brat had grown a conscience, knowing I'd been tormented for days. It turned out it was because he was sending my father away to suppress a rebellion. Just great. Wonderful. With dark circles under my eyes, I was helped into the carriage and slept the entire way home. When I arrived at Prince Jin's manor, I intended to collapse straight into bed, but I was kept waiting outside for a full hour. My life is truly full of obstacles. After an hour, when my patience had finally run out, a maid scurried over to report. She said the concubine my father took on his journey here had fallen, broken her leg and couldn't move. She needed me to go see her. I understood. This was a show of dominance. Right out of the gate, I'm a very magnanimous woman. Waiting an hour while someone puts on makeup, I can tolerate that. But if they're deliberately looking for trouble, then I'm going to get angry. Thinking about it now, this capital really does reject me. I was blocked at the gate before I even entered, then stuck in the palace with no happy days. Now that I'm finally out, someone is still trying to cause trouble. I put down my teacup, patted my robes, and stood up. Where is this concubine Iris Pan? The maid pointed behind her. In the autumn water courtyard. It was a poetic name describing autumn scenery. A nice name. My father definitely didn't pick it. The maid nodded. You are correct, my lady. Concubine Iris named it herself. My father never understood poetry or romance. When he gives a gift, he just shoves a bag of silver at you. How could you expect him to appreciate the poetic imagery of autumn ripples reflecting golden waves, distant mountains hidden by the forest screen? I asked again. My father mentioned there was a garden in the manor. Where is it? The maid obediently pointed east. In front of the Jiaoying courtyard, there is the Suyu garden. It's filled with blooming flowers, year-round. Jiaoying courtyard, that's a nice name too. And me, where did this concubine Iris plan to put me? At this, the maid lowered her head and shook it like a rattle. This servant does not know. I stroked my chin, thinking. Either concubine Iris hadn't arranged a place for me at all, or the place was so terrible the maid didn't dare tell me. Alright, I understand, I smiled. Let's go. Lead the way. The maid finally let out a sigh of relief. The little maid was afraid I'd feel insulted and refused to see concubine Iris. If we reached a stalemate, she'd be the one to suffer. So, she happily started leading me toward the autumn water courtyard. But I stopped and pointed east. What's the hurry? I just got home. I haven't even admired the flowers yet. By the time the Suyu garden caught fire, it was already dark. The blaze was fierce, burning a furious red. The manor's servants reacted quickly, and soon they were automatically fetching water to douse the flames. The maid stared blankly at the fire. It's over, it's over. I'm dead for sure this time. I chimed in, yes, yes. You are definitely dead this time. Tears welled in her eyes, and she turned to grab a bucket. I pulled the little maid back. Don't make trouble. Your tiny frame will only get in the way. There are plenty of people in the manor to put out the fire. The maid watched the rare flowers in the Suyu garden burn to cinders. But the flowers the young mistress worked so hard to plant. It's all the same. Burned or pulled, the end result is that they're gone. The maid was frantic. Aren't you afraid concubine Iris and the young mistress will make trouble for you later? Hearing this, I realized something had been bothering me. I pointed to myself. Then I pointed to the Jiao Ying courtyard not far away. And she is also the young mistress. A young mistress here, a young mistress there. How do you people tell us apart? Seeing the chaos of the firefighting around us, the maid whispered in my ear. Young Mistress Elara Zhang hasn't been entered into the Imperial Family Registry. She also dislikes being called Third Miss Zhang, so she instructed everyone to just call her Young Mistress. She glanced at me. People in the manor don't talk about you much. And since Third Miss Zhang was the only master here, over time that's just what everyone calls her. Her surname is Zhang. No wonder my father never mentioned having another child. I just assumed he was so busy scolding me all these years that he forgot. I pulled the maid to stand before the fire. The intense heat fought back against the cold of the encroaching night. In this struggle between hot and cold, I seemed to see another fire, from many years ago. My mother in this world, back then, to buy time for me, my first uncle, and my two younger cousins to escape. She had locked the door, and pushed over the candles. Tears streamed down my face before I even realized it. The maid whispered, "My lady, why are you crying? Are you scared too?" Scared? I laughed. Only when the fire outside burns, can the fire in my heart be extinguished. I feel much better now. Elara Zhang was the first to arrive. Seeing the Suyu garden completely scorched, she was so stunned she nearly fainted. Then, after hearing a servant say something, she stormed toward me, raising her hand to strike. "You bitch. You dare burn my garden." I had no intention of standing still to be hit. I blocked her arm and used her own momentum to push her back. Elara stumbled, then raised her other hand. But this time, before she could get close, I kicked her. She staggered back several steps, lost her balance, and was about to fall backward before her servants caught her. Humiliated, Elara grew even more furious. Her face, twisted in the firelight, looked demonic. Throw her into the fire. Burn her alive. The servants looked at each other, not daring to move. Elara flew into a rage, hitting them. "You dare to disobey me too. Don't forget your servitude contracts are still in my mother's hands. Do you not want to live anymore?" This threat spurred them into action. Several servants started to move. The maid beside me, trembling, shut her eyes and shielded me. That is the High Lady. You wouldn't dare. I don't care who she is. Elara was truly hysterical, screaming, "Burn her. I want her dead. I want her dead." The maid in front of me was shaking like a leaf. "My lady. We're really going to die this time." Not necessarily. I looked up at the hidden guards on the roof, waiting for my signal. I was about to call them down when Julian, dressed in fine brocade, burst in. He had several people behind him and, seeing the fire, made to charge right in. I grabbed his arm. "Where are you going?" Julian had also lost his cool. He wordlessly shook my hand off and kept moving forward. He took a few steps, then spun back around. "Sister Cece, you're here? Hemph, you're so big now, but your eyesight is terrible." I pulled him back, instinctively putting him behind me. I was about to signal the guards, but I realized the courtyard had become strangely silent. Did I miss something during Julian's interruption? Before I could think, Elara curtsied. "Greetings, Your Highness, the heir apparent." Her etiquette was passable, her back straight. It was a pleasant sight. I turned to look at Julian, who was grinning from ear to ear. "You two know each other?" "Nope," Julian smiled so widely his face bloomed, pulling my hand. It was the national mourning period, and Sister Cece was in the palace, so it wasn't convenient to invite you. Today I heard you left the palace, so my father sent me to invite you to our manor for a meal. I just got home. I need to rest for a day or two. I patted his head. Let's save that meal for another day. Julian wasn't discouraged. Then I'll stay here tonight. Prince Jin's manor is so large, surely there's a place for me. My father isn't here, and the manor is full of women. It's not appropriate for you to stay. Julian mumbled. It seems Sister Cece has never been to the capital. How did you learn these old-fashioned rules so well? I just smiled in response. Julian came to invite me. He understood my stubborn streak. If I refused to go, he couldn't drag me very well. But before leaving, he kicked at the dirt and asked, "If I leave, will Sister Cece be bullied?" I burst out laughing. How can I be bullied in my own home? Julian smiled too. The firelight behind him had dimmed, but thick smoke still billowed. The faint light flickered on his face. Sister Cece, anyone bullies you, just set a fire. I'll see it and I'll come get you. I gave him a push and waved my hand, signaling the hidden guards to come down. The little maid clutched her chest, tears in her eyes. Thank goodness. So we don't have to die. After Julian left, Elora had clearly calmed down. Her earlier hysteria was one thing. She could just claim she didn't know who I was, and that throwing me in the fire was a mistake. She could have killed the servants who were present, and come up with an excuse for the rest. But now that Julian had burst in, seen everything, and said those words, she couldn't just sweep it under the rug. Elora forced a smile. These foolish servants didn't speak clearly. I thought you were some other young lady. It turns out it's you, sister. We've never met, so I didn't recognize you. Please don't blame me. She then commanded, "Men, drag that maid beside my sister out and beat her to death. Let everyone in this manor see clearly how they should speak and act from now on." The servants didn't dare touch me, but when it came to a little maid, they didn't hesitate. They had just moved in when my hidden guards blocked their way. Good. Excellent. I clapped my hands slowly, daring to seize someone right in front of me. "Third Miss Zhang, you truly are impressive." Hearing me call her Third Miss Zhang, the fake smile on Elora's face almost cracked. I could see she was trying to provoke me, and she could naturally see I was deliberately stepping on her sore spot. She said, "Calling me sister seems so distant. By etiquette, we are blood sisters." I raised an eyebrow. Sisters with the same father but different mothers. Elara used a handkerchief to dab at the soot from the fire, forcing another smile. "Sister Cece is so blunt, but this maid beside you is truly incompetent. If we don't handle this, how will we manage the servants in the future? We are the masters. What authority will we have left?" I habitually brushed the dust off the little maid's clothes. "Whether you have authority or not, what does that have to do with me?" Elara's lips turned purple with anger. "As Sister Cece, not a master of this manor, how can you stand aside like this?" I stopped, looked at her, and feigned confusion. "Whether I have authority or not, what does that have to do with you?" Crude. Elora was shaking with rage. What kind of lady speaks so vulgarly? I rolled my eyes and shouted toward the shadows. "Concubine Iris, since you're already here, stop lurking. Your daughter is no match for me." Concubine Iris Pan, her face pale, was helped out of the shadows. She insisted on getting out of her sedan chair to bow to me, stumbling and getting covered in dirt and ash. "Look at this one. Much more cunning. She knows she can't win with force, so she feigns weakness. Hi lady, it is this servant who failed to discipline her, causing you displeasure. This servant will accept any punishment." Elora ran over, crying, to help her up, only to be slapped across the face by Concubine Iris. "You wretched girl. What is your status, and what is the High Lady's status? We live here depending on the prince and the High Lady's charity. How dare you upset the High Lady? Apologize at once." Elora was surprisingly obedient. She turned, knelt on the ground and kowtowed, sobbing out an apology. In moments, the mother and daughter were a crying mess, giving me a headache. Just look at me. So tyrannical. I'd barely walked in the door, and I'd already made my father's concubine and illegitimate daughter kneel and kowtow. Especially after I had just set a fire. But hypocrisy only works on morals. My morals are selective. So I silently watched them clutch each other and weep for a long time. The servants saw I wasn't moving, so they didn't dare move either. A few tried to step forward and mediate, but Concubine Iris pushed them away. When they failed to persuade her, they turned to persuade me. I signaled my guards, "For everyone who comes, knock one out. For every pair, knock out a pair." At first, they didn't react. But then, seeing person after person get knocked out for trying to plead for their mistress, they felt they had to plead too. If everyone else was unconscious, and they were the only ones standing, wouldn't that prove their disloyalty? So, one after another, the ground around me filled with unconscious bodies. After a while, perhaps because concubine Iris had run out of tears or realized this wasn't working, she kneeled and shuffled over to me. "High lady, as long as you can appease your anger, this servant and my unworthy daughter are willing to die." "Oh, die." I saw concubine Iris's body stiffen for a second, then I smiled. "Death isn't necessary, it's already dark. We can discuss this tomorrow. What do you think?" Concubine Iris nodded weakly. "The High Lady is right, of course." "Then, where am I staying?" Concubine Iris stammered. "The High Lady has returned, and you are the only legitimate daughter in this manor. By rights, you should stay in the Jiaoying courtyard. But, many years ago, the prince generously bestowed that courtyard upon my unworthy daughter. Most of the other courtyards are in disrepair. Only the Tuju courtyard is temporarily habitable, but it would be a great inconvenience for the High Lady." I interjected. A smile instantly bloomed on concubine Iris's face. I knew the High Lady was Gen. I cut her off again. "I will be staying in the Jiaoying courtyard." Alara's eyes went wide. "If you stay in the Jiaoying courtyard, where will I stay?" "Then you'll just have to be inconvenienced by that Tuju courtyard." Concubine Iris also stammered. "But the Jiaoying courtyard is full of Alara's things. I'm afraid you won't get used to them." "Nonsense. By etiquette, Alara and I are sisters. Between sisters, how could I possibly dislike her things?" Concubine Iris's eyes darted. She whispered, "Very well. This is how it should be. The Jiaoying courtyard always belonged to the High Lady. Alara is not worthy." She then pressed her handkerchief to her eyes, weeping. "Perhaps it's better if she just stays with me. We cannot occupy the manor's courtyards any longer." I looked up at the sky. It really was getting late, and I was sleepy. I couldn't be bothered to dance around with this pair any longer. I said bluntly, "Do you really not know why I'm sending your daughter to the Tuju courtyard?" Seeing the veins pop on the back of her hand, as she gripped the handkerchief, I pointed to two guards. "Take third Miss Jiang to the Tuju courtyard. Remember, Tuju, not spring bamboo, summer bamboo, or autumn bamboo courtyard. It must be Tuju. If she refuses or makes a scene, don't bother arguing. Just break her legs and throw her in." Finally, I glanced at the extinguished fire in the Suyu garden. Oh, right, reminds me of concubine Iris. A fire like this can easily reignite. If it catches fire again in the middle of the night, you'd better pay close attention. After all, concubine Iris, you are the manager. If this fire gets too big, you won't be able to escape responsibility. I can set a fire in my own home, that's my business. But she's the manager. Would she dare let the fire spread, dare to see it and not manage it? Even if she didn't, well, I have my guards. At worst, I'll just pack up and go back to Lu Mountain to farm. The one who loses face will be my father. With my guards at the door, they didn't dare cause any more trouble that night. I woke up early the next morning, and the little maid, Chunju, brought me a simple breakfast. I glanced at it and felt relieved. If they had sent shark's fin and bird's nest soup, I really wouldn't have been able to eat it. But this was just a bowl of plain congee and a plate of pickled vegetables. I lifted the bowl and sniffed. Reheated. Chunju saw me holding the bowl silently, her eyes turning red. "My lady, they've gone too far. It's fine. It's just reheated congee. It won't kill me." Chunju's tears fell. "But you are the High Lady, with your noble status. How can you eat this? Plain rice and pickles are already very good." She must have been well protected in this manner, never having truly suffered. In her eyes, plain congee and pickles were probably the worst food imaginable. I finished the congee quickly and ordered someone to ride out of the city and give my father a message. First, I want Suyu Garden to be planted with sweet potatoes and hybrid rice. Second, I am going to discipline his concubine and illegitimate daughter. If I can't make them behave, I can't stay in this house. Third, if he doesn't agree to the first two, I'm going back to Lu Mountain to farm. The lifelong mission of an agriculturalist is to farm. No one, anywhere, can stop me from farming. My father had just left the city with military supplies. A fast horse could catch him in half a day. He'd probably be back by tonight. After my congee, I went back to sleep. In the afternoon, my third uncle, Marcus Chen, came to visit. He said that kid Arthur had also wanted to come, but he'd talked him out of it. "If you need anything, just say the word. My boy was under your protection back then. Third uncle owes you a great debt. Besides, we are family. I held my teacup and smiled. It's not necessary, uncle. It's a small matter. Please, attend to your own business. My third uncle clicked his tongue. A fire that big, can you really handle it? Of course, I can more than handle it. I didn't keep him for dinner, personally seeing him out. Then, I turned and walked to the autumn water courtyard. Along the way, I saw very few servants working. Most were gathered in groups, idling. Some were even gambling. When they saw me, not only did they not show any restraint, they became even louder. When I finally met concubine Iris, she was crying in a river. Hi lady, please forgive me. This servant status has always been improper. Now that the high lady is home, and my leg of these servants see a kind person, and just act lawlessly. I leaned on the table and looked at her. So they refused to cook lunch as well. The maid Chunju went to get a bowl of plain congee, and they said there was none. She went to the purchasers, and they said they had to buy vegetables and rice, but the finance office wouldn't release the silver. She went to the finance office, and they said the books were being audited, and not a single coin could be released. Hearing this, concubine Iris covered her mouth and coughed. Oh dear me. I forgot about that. It's true, it's the prince's rule that no public funds can be touched during an audit. As she spoke, she pulled a hairpin from her hair so quickly that it tore out a few strands. We cannot violate the prince's rules. If the high lady wishes to eat, please take this hairpin, sell it, and buy something. I stared at the hairpin for a long time before pushing it back into her hair. I had no idea the concubine cared for me so much. It seems I was the one being unreasonable. I paused, then said, my father's rule has really made you suffer. Never mind. Concubine Iris's expression wavered. The prince naturally has his reasons. This servant does not feel wronged. What's there to be afraid of? I wasn't going to tell anyone. Well, maybe I'll tell my father, just to contradict him for once. Everyone makes mistakes. A's for you, concubine. I sat back down. I thought the servants in this manner were acting lawlessly on your orders. It seems I was the petty one. But having these servants in the manner not only wrongs you, but it also makes us a laughingstock to outsiders. We should just fire them. Concubine Iris's eyes widened, and she nearly lost her composure. How can we do that? There are at least several hundred servants in this manor. Some were bestowed by His Majesty, others were gifts from esteemed families. If we fire them all, wouldn't that be a slap in the face to all those people? I picked up my teacup and drained it. Concubine, worry. Even if it is a slap in their face, I'll be the one doing the slapping. It has nothing to do with you. Concubine Iris pressed on. If we fire so many people, where will we find replacements on such short notice? That is not something you need to worry about. By the time I left the autumn water courtyard, the personnel sent from the palace had arrived. To get this resolved quickly, Arthur had even dispatched 500 imperial guards, who arrived with great fanfare. In an instant, the servants who were gambling stopped, and those who were lazing about jumped up. Every one of them was crying, saying they deserved to die, kneeling and begging, High Lady, spare our lives. Were there no good people among these servants? Of course there were. But how to distinguish them? Who to keep, who to fire? The sharp-eyed people from the palace would handle that. I just needed the result. Every trade has its master. Why should I meddle in things I'm not good at? My aunt, Isabella Chen, arrived while the manor was in chaos. Concubine Iris, leaning on a cane, tried to approach her, crying about tyrannical I was, but Isabella sidestepped her. Don't just grab at me, as if we are that close. We have never liked you. Don't you know that? Because Isabella dodged, concubine Iris lost her balance and fell to the ground. Only then did she realize something. My family never bothered with false pleasantries, it's true. What good citizen steals from the imperial grain supply? What good citizen? Rebels. Aren't most of them just waiting to die? Concubine Iris understood this point, and didn't dare pester her further, meekly letting her servants help her away. My family was full of crazy rebels. What good would arguing with lunatics do? It was a waste of breath. Isabella was as direct as I was. She sat down and said, This is your household's affair. I shouldn't interfere. Your father asked me to come. The guard with her nodded at me. I poured her a cup of tea. She took a sip. This concubine Iris has someone backing her, and it's related to you. The person behind her is the old madam of the Duke Lu Manor, a family that surrendered from the previous dynasty. These surrendered families, they betrayed their master back then, but the Lu family didn't contribute much. Their surrender wasn't the most glorious, and they even hesitated, which made people despise them. They're really good for nothing. But Isabella looked at me meaningfully. They have a talented grandson, Alariclu. He truly was born good. No wonder you liked him on sight. I protested. When did I ever say I liked him? She nearly choked. Your imperial father brought the portraits. He said he showed them to you one by one, and you chose him yourself. I fell silent as the memories from the past slowly connected and piled up. I finally remembered. It seemed 1 year, while I was farming, a eunuch did indeed come. He claimed to be acting on my grandfather's orders, saying he wanted to select a fiancé for me. He showed me portraits one by one, introducing the background of each candidate. At that time, I had just finished hoeing 2 mu of land and was exhausted. In a daze, I just pointed at one portrait. He then happily reported back and left. I didn't even remember it clearly. Now that you bring it up, it really is my fault. Aunt Isabella saw my expression and knew I had remembered. She continued, initially, the Liu family just wanted to use this grandson to latch onto our family's great tree. But this Alaric grew more and more handsome, and not only that, he's incredibly talented. Last year in the palace examination, he passed and became the Zhuangyuan, the top scholar. With such joyous news, it should have been a dual celebration. Success in the examinations and a happy marriage. But you were still on Liu Mountain, fiddling with your toys, and refusing to return. Adding to our family's status, your grandfather kept a close watch on Alaric. He didn't dare have any illegitimate children before you returned, and kept himself pure. As this dragged on and he got older, the Duke Liu Manor naturally started to have second thoughts. I pressed my palms together. Amitabha. My sin. My sin. It truly is my sin. After I finished my penance, Aunt Isabella said, but it's not right to all the blame on you. Because of our engagement, the Duke Liu Manor has received countless benefits. If not for us Humph, they wouldn't even be qualified to hold the title of Duke. Nothing in this world is ever perfect. Since they've already received so many tangible benefits, they can't expect everything else to go their way too. She finished her tea and tapped the cup. I quickly poured her another cup, listening as she continued. As for that concubine Iris in your father's manor, do you know why we despise her so much? She attached herself to your father when she was already married, and she even brought a daughter with her. In truth, that's not the issue. So what if she's a widow? So what if she remarried? As long as she had a clean and proper break with her previous husband. Whether he died, they divorced, or even if she was cast out. As a woman, I can sympathize. It's not easy to raise a child alone, and it's understandable to seek stable support. Stable support. But this Iris, in order to preserve her own wealth and status, deceived her husband into a trap and caused his death. She was originally the legitimate daughter of Grand Tutor Pan of the former dynasty. She and her husband, Gavin Zhang, were childhood sweethearts and, by all accounts, a loving couple. Gavin was the final beacon of the old dynasty. While he lived, my imperial father suffered one defeat after another. It was only after his death that the old dynasty truly began to collapse, and the reason he was killed by a volley of arrows because his wife Iris lured him with a false letter. He was ambushed by my father's forces and our spies at Fenglingdu, all because he was trying to rescue his wife and child from prison. Tell me, what kind of venomous woman does that? Gavin may have been a hound of the old court, but he was a brilliant general of his time. What's more, do you remember Victor? It was Gavin who felt a moment of compassion and spared his life. A man like that. Do you know what he said as he was dying? He actually said, "My wife and child will be left as a widow and orphans. I am willing to exchange my life for their peace and prosperity." This means that even though he saw through her, he still wanted to protect her life with his own. And what did Iris do? Her husband was barely cold on the ground before she climbed into your father's bed. Truly, Aunt Isabella spat. What a creature. I frowned. So does this mean concubine Iris is considered someone who rendered a great service, that she cannot be easily touched? Aunt Isabella sighed. This is why your family's situation is just so infuriatingly complicated. The day the incident with Iris and your father happened, your grandfather actually wanted to give her a respectable future. She's a woman. He could have just supported her, made her an adopted relative, perhaps granted her the title of county mistress. That would have been enough. But she refused. She insisted on becoming a servant at your father's side. Look at that. Willingly debasing herself. As for your father, I've watched him for years. The only one he ever loved was your mother. That one incident, he was schemed against. If not for that. After all these years your father, in the prime of his life, should have had a whole brood of children. But right now, he only has you. You should understand what that implies. As for Iris, she has been by his side for many years. Even without romantic feelings, she did save your father's life a few times. Later, when we settled in the capital, the household was a complete mess, so we just let her manage it. I traced the smooth edge of the table. This didn't seem like an insurmountable problem. But there was one thing I didn't understand. What is the relationship between Iris and the Duke Lu Manor? The old madam of Duke Lu's manor and your concubine Iris are aunt and niece by blood. Speaking of the Pan family, although their men are all dead, the Pan women are exceptionally good at reading the wind. After that long explanation, she was finally finished. But then Aunt Isabella hesitated. Cece, putting Alaric aside for a moment, just based on the dirty tricks the Duke Lu Manor is pulling. You can see he is absolutely not a good match. Why must a daughter of our family jump into that wolf's den? And then, there is Victor. You remember him, don't you? My husband's nephew. All those years ago, he was the one who willingly walked into the lion's den to protect the rest of you. The others. They were all beheaded and displayed as the old dynasty fell. Only Victor was spared, thanks to that moment of compassion from Gavin. All these years, he has remained single, never married. I know he is not worthy of you now, but if you are willing to marry him, the Lin family will absolutely treat you well. Your aunt, will also. Julian, who had apparently been eavesdropping on the roof this whole time, suddenly kicked the door open. Your Highness, the Grand Princess. You are Sister Cece's blood aunt. I have never seen anyone so eager to push their own niece into a pit of fire. Do you know who my sister Cece is? Marry a cripple. How could you even say such a thing? Aunt Isabella, stern by the outburst, turned bright red. What do you know? Your sister Cece is already this age. How many good men are left for her to choose from? Besides, if Victor hadn't sacrificed himself to protect you all those years ago, who knows where you'd be? You might have been beheaded just like the others. Would you even be here today, shouting at us? Julian strode forward, unhooked the sword from his waist, and slammed it on the table. He hooked a chair with his foot, planted his boot on it, and glared at Aunt Isabella. He saved us, and he became disabled. I am grateful to him. If he wants this life in return, he can take it. But my sister Cece is the bright moon in the sky. Only the best man in this world is worthy of her. Victor is now a cripple. He is not worthy. Even if saying this offends the Lin family, and even if it offends you, Your Highness, I must say it. Victor is not worthy. Aunt Isabella angrily flicked her sleeves and stormed out. Before leaving, she merely said she had relayed the message from my father and that the rest was up to me to decide. As for Julian, she paused, looking him over as if a thought struck her. Evaluated him for a long moment before saying, You are too young. You don't know what love really is. You don't know what it's like, after marrying and having children, to watch your wife grow old day by day until you feel only disgust. Boy, is what you really love. Even Aunt Isabella could see this kid's intensity after just one encounter. I saw her at the door, then turned back to Julian, my head instantly aching. Lion, from now on, you are not to come to Prince Jin's manor. I won't be seeing you again. Why? I deliberately slowed my voice, forcing it to be cold. Because this is my home, and I forbid you from coming here. This could be my home too. I closed my eyes. Lion, you know what kind of person I am. No, Sister Cece. His voice grew urgent. When he saw I wouldn't budge, it turned to pleading. Sister Cece, you can't. This child is stubborn, I've known that since he was little. His personality, to put it nicely, is resolute. To put it bluntly, he's the type who won't turn back until he's slammed his head into a brick wall. A hard approach wouldn't work. I had no choice but to rub my temples. Lion, you are too young. You didn't have your mother beside you when you were growing up. You're confusing your attachment to a mother figure with romantic love for a woman. It's all right. You have plenty of time to think this through. You should find a young, vibrant girl, someone younger than you, more full of life. You two can ride horses together, practice archery, play the zither, admire tea, and paint. I never learned any of those things. Lion, I am a coarse woman. I don't understand etiquette. I'm not beautiful, and my youth is fading. There is nothing about me worth your love. That's not true. Julian shouted, his voice thick. He swallowed back his anger, but his tone was choked with emotion. You're not like that. He grabbed my shoulders, then my hand. His palm was damp with sweat, slick against mine. His fingers curled, tracing a light, tingling line across my palm. He pinned me against the wall, bracing his hand above my head. He buried his face in my neck, and his stifled sobs were a hot, damp sensation against my skin. Sister. Cece, I know what love is. I love you. It is the love of a man for a woman. It is not some twisted affection for a mother. Seeing him grow more frantic, I struggled and shouted, "Let me go. Aren't you afraid someone will see us?" He only held me tighter, pressing me harder against the wall. His hot young body, separated from mine by only thin layers of fabric, made me freeze completely. Let them look. So what if the entire world knows? Julian's tongue parted my lips, and voice was hoarse but firm. Sister Cece, I love you, I desire you, and I am not ashamed to say it. I was being forcibly kissed by the kid I had practically raised. There is a 7-year age gap, for heaven's sake. Just thinking about it, when I was in elementary school, he wasn't even born. When I was in high school, he was just a little kid. When I graduated college, he was just entering high school. I just cannot get over this mental hurdle. But if you can't get over a hurdle, you can just walk around it. There's no need, to stab yourself knowing it will hurt. For the next few days, I ordered the guards to block Julian from entering the manor. I focused on tilling the soil in the Suyu garden. The earth was incredibly fertile after the fire, and the high heat had also sterilized it, killing many parasite eggs. I wanted to continue my research to increase rice production, to mass-produce hybrid rice, and to cultivate seeds that could adapt to harsh climates and poor farming conditions. I cannot predict what the future will be, but I hope that no one will have to suffer from hunger. I hope the streets will not be filled with children who have starved to death. I hope that in the future, even if there are still beggars, and even if they can't get money, when they ask for a bite of food, people can easily spare it. I hope that hunger will no longer be a primary driver of social conflict. While I was passionately tilling my land, concubine Iris and Elara were just as busy outside, but their schemes were so boring. It was just the same old things, spreading rumors that I was tyrannical, that I set afire the moment I entered the manor, that I dismissed half the staff, that I had no virtue. They bustled about for days, yet the capital remained quiet. There was no widespread gossip on the streets. Concubine Iris grew anxious. I, on the other hand, was getting tired of burning all the secret reports. The content of the letters was all largely the same. Your Highness, rest assured, given our friendship, let's not even say these rumors are fabricated. Even if they were true, our family would never listen. Now that we've heard this, we will keep it buried. This was the pledging loyalty type. Reporting to Your Highness, the commoners who dared to whisper these rumors have been dragged into the dungeons, beaten, starved for several days, and then released. They won't dare speak nonsense again. This was the taking action type. Your Highness, my second uncle's grandson, was one of the children you saved. Your servant has also heard the rumors. Please rest assured, I have already dispatched my men. In a few days, the entire capital will know that Iris killed her husband for glory. This was the counter-scheming type. And of course, there were also other types. Your Highness, are you perhaps in need of male companions? If you desire, this servant will deliver them at once. This was the obscene type. I silently read each letter, then burned them one by one. Reports flooded the manor daily like snowflakes. Julian kept trying to climb the wall, and got caught and beaten several times. But another person also appeared outside the manor a few times. Victor. Of those 5 teenagers, he was the only one who survived. He had recently made a few appearances. It was strange. Since returning to the capital, I still had not gone to see him. The days passed just like that. Then, one day, Arthur sent me an invitation to the Shanglin Imperial Banquet. His reasoning was that since I returned, all I did was farm, and he was afraid I would farm myself stupid. He wanted me to get out and relax. I thought about it, and he had a point. Since my return to the capital, many underground forces had gone quiet. I had used the chaos of replacing the manor's servants as a cover to move around and plant some of my own people to investigate. But, time had passed. There was little else I could do. I might as well go out and see if I could catch any fish. I accepted the invitation. This annual Shanglin banquet, a celebration for all, I would definitely attend. Along with the invitation came an imperial edict from Arthur. He officially named me the Grand Princess, with the title Chengping, meaning peace. He also sent a private message, saying that the heir of the Dukelu Manor, Alaric, would also be there. We could meet, and if it really didn't work out, he would find someone else for me. He was also very magnanimous, saying he didn't like using women for political marriage alliances to consolidate power. Even if he had to, there were other options. Besides, I was already so old, marrying me off might actually offend the other party. Alright, he has some conscience, just not a lot. Some affection, but it doesn't run deep. I held the invitation, sat by the brazier, and continued burning the reports. Grandfather had rushed to implement the travel pass policy because he realized the capital was crawling with spies from the former dynasty. They were everywhere, even in the palace. Even the sweet potato rice. That night had been poisoned. If I hadn't accidentally spilled it, and then noticed someone secretly tampering with the leftovers, Arthur would have fallen gravely ill. When we found the inside spy, he had already smuggled poison into the palace, just short of administering it to him. This is why I say my fate is bitter. Those days in the palace, I spent day and night investigating spies, standing vigil by the coffin, and still had to sleep in the same room as the emperor. And yet that little brat listened to provocations, grew suspicious of his two uncles, and was actually planning a hangman banquet, a deadly trap. If I hadn't discovered it early, all three of them would be dead by now. I raised him for years, and he's still that foolish. And he still wanted to sleep on my bed, in his dreams. After leaving the palace, I used the pretext of fighting with concubine Iris to move my people out of the palace and plant my own hidden guards within the manor. For several days, people were publicly beaten at the palace gates as a warning. This intimidated everyone, and they began to act more cautiously. This was good. Arthur had just taken the throne. This period of calm gave him time to consolidate his control over the court. But concubine Iris, when she heard servants were being beaten to death at the palace gates, she was scared into illness. On the day of the Shanglin banquet, I left my doors wide open, just waiting for the trap to be sprung. I swaggered in with only Chunju, went straight to the lake to fish, and, accidentally, overheard Elara gossiping about me with a group of young ladies. Have you heard about that, Highness? Of course, it's been the talk of the capital. But everyone is too afraid of her power to say it publicly. They only dare to whisper. Behind her back. It's infuriating. I heard that when she was returning to the capital, she was robbed and had to beg her way here. When she got to the gate, she didn't have a travel pass and tried to throw her weight around with the guards. They got angry and beat her up. Good. Those soldiers did the right thing. Someone, I don't know which lady, said this boldly. She's clearly just a country bumpkin. I've never seen a noble lady act so tyrannically. She insisted on firing all the servants in her manor. And the emperor dotes on this sister of his. So she's already caused so many deaths. A girl who didn't know asked, what do you mean by that? What else could it be? She even had the imperial guard escort the servants gifted from the palace back. But once a gift is given by the palace, how can it possibly be returned? The emperor was furious and ordered them all to be beaten to death at the Meridian Gate. For days, the screams were horrifying. My home is nearby. I've had nightmares for nights. They say the blood at the Meridian Gate still hasn't been washed away. Tell me, isn't she just accumulating bad karma? How could the emperor be so ruthless too? I guess he wanted to establish her authority. She's a country bumpkin, and she was humiliated at the city gate. How could she not be vengeful? And that's not all. Because the emperor set an example, the servants returned to the other manors and met terrible ends too. If the palace servants were all killed, who would dare to keep the others? Oh, how these ladies chatted away. Then they turned to Elara. Elara, she is your sister. You've met her, right? Is she really like the rumors? Hideous, filthy, short, ugly, and dark. I looked down at my reflection in the lake and couldn't help but mutter, dark, yes, that's true. But hideous and filthy is a bit much. I may not be a beauty, but I'm at least presentable. Also, the one kicked at the gate was Ernie Wang. What does that have to do with me? Rumors are truly scarier than tigers. On the other side, Elara was asked, but she didn't answer for a long time. The ladies grew impatient. Oh, Elara, don't cry. Just tell us, what is she really like? Elara finally spoke, her voice thick with sobs. What is she like? How would I dare say? But the moment she returned, she incited my mother to beat me. Look at my face. They're still covered in marks. The ladies gasped. She is so vicious. Elara cried even harder. That's not all. The moment she arrived, she seized my courtyard and threw me out into a dilapidated guest yard. The roof leaks, the wind blows through, and it's overgrown with weeds. I've been bitten by mosquitoes so much I can't stand it. My mother couldn't bear to see me suffer. She said we wouldn't occupy the manor's main courtyard, that we'd give it to her. She just begged for us to be allowed to live together, even in a servant's quarter, just a place to stay. But he Here, Elora choked on her sobs. She wouldn't agree. She ordered her guards to throw me into that yard, saying if my mother and I didn't comply, she would have my legs broken. The ladies were furious. She is truly evil. Alara paused, then added, if it were just a little grievance, that would be one thing. But she also set fire to the Suyu garden. That garden is right next to my courtyard. Thankfully, the servants discovered it in time. If they had been a moment later, I'm afraid I would have been buried in that sea of flames. The ladies gasped. Alara said earnestly, my status is low. If I die, I die. I just feel so sorry for my cousin. The ladies chimed in, you mean your cousin Alaric? Yes, him. My cousin has kept himself pure for her for all these years, but she's a bumpkin, her reputation is ruined, she's tyrannical, and I heard she only escaped from bandits to get back to the capital. A respectable young lady, after falling into a place like that. How many can truly emerge, untainted? The ladies all sighed. Your poor cousin, a hero matched with such a wife. Then, someone else spoke up. And then there's the young heir apparent, Julian. He's been very close with that highness lately. I heard that when they were refugees, they even slept in the same room at night. A lady shrieked. I was silent for a long time. Finally, I couldn't stand it anymore and walked out. Seeing me, the ladies first froze, then scrambled to curtsy, covering their faces and scattering. But not Alara. I called out to her. Third Miss Jung, you add so much spice to your stories, slandering me behind my back like this. Did you really think I wouldn't do anything to you? Alara stiffened her neck. What? Does your highness intend to silence the whole world? If I don't say it, do you think no one else knows? My hands were covered in mud from fishing. I slowly wiped them on Alara's fine robes. I didn't come here to argue with you. I came to tell you something. Seeing her about to jump back, I gripped her shoulders. I heard the Duchess of Lu passed away a few days ago. The old Duke of Lu is so bereaved he has fallen ill. The Lu Manor is looking for a new wife for him, a pinky, to ward off ill fortune. Perhaps he will recover. You're 15 this year, aren't you? Such a beautiful, blooming age. I said every word slowly. Elora listened, and by the end, her face was ashen. She even forgot to struggle. The Duke of Lu is 59. He's old enough to be my grandfather. You, how dare you? I raised an eyebrow. Your mother may have rendered a service to the state, but the Zhang family are remnants of the previous dynasty, still sheltering so-called heirs and plotting rebellion. The old Duke of Lu has a lifetime of glorious military achievements and a noble status. Marrying him as his co-wife, is that really wrong of you? Furthermore, if His Majesty also thinks this is a good match and decrees it, would you dare to resist? Alara's tears instantly started to fall. You're so cruel. You will face retribution. Is that so? And your mother? She's cooped up in Prince Jin's manor, insisting on making trouble for me. What benefit does she get from that? Don't you know, that manor is now full of my people. If I wanted to do something, in her food, her drink, or simply throw her in the lake and say she slipped, or starve her for a few days and say she has a strange illness, and is dying. Also, did you know, you can even drown in a cesspit. How hard is it to kill one person? Alara's eyes were wide with terror. She challenged me hysterically. If you do that, aren't you afraid of being exposed? And so what if I am? In a great household, people die all the time. Do you think everyone dies of old age? Who is going to pursue justice to the bitter end for an outsider? And even if they do, who would come to punish me? Would they really execute a grand princess like me to avenge a mere concubine like your mother? After I said this, Alara began to tremble uncontrollably. I watched her for a moment and sneered. You want to fight me with this level of scheming? Third Miss Zhang, listen carefully. You can slander me behind my back all you want. I don't care about my reputation, so I'll let it slide. But Julian, he is now at the perfect age for marriage. If your nonsense rumors affect his marriage prospects. I reached out and adjusted the hairpin in her hair. My voice was icy. I will kill you. Seeing the hairpin was straight, I smiled at her and now. Alara could only weep silently, nodding over and over. I got bored. Threatening a 15-year-old girl like this, I really am terrible. I didn't stay long and turned to walk around the rockery. As soon as, I reached the path, I saw Julian leaning against a tree, smiling brightly. I have no idea how long he was standing there listening. Sister Sishi, why are you so angry? We did sleep in the same room before, head to toe. She wasn't wrong. My head throbbed just looking at him. I didn't want to engage, so I walked away in silence. He didn't follow, just watched me go before leaving. I returned to my seat and waited, and waited. I watched performance after performance, tasted dish after dish until finally, a cup of wine was served. I instinctively looked at Victor. He was already looking at me. When our eyes met, he froze. I raised my cup to him from a distance, then drained it in one gulp. He finally took the bait. I sent my people to investigate his network and prepare to pull the net. Not long after, I felt dizzy and hot. I excused myself to go rest. This plan was perfect. Barring any accidents, I'd wake up, and 70 to 80% of the spies in the capital would be eliminated. But when you plan for no accidents, an accident always happens. When I woke up, I felt Julian lying next to me. I was silent. The old Madame Lu, who led the charge into the room, was also silent. But old Ginger is spicier. The old madam was stunned for only a moment before she roared, "Your Highness, to do such an immoral thing. Where is the face of the imperial family? Where is the face of my son?" I ignored her, lifted the blanket, and checked my clothes there, and then instinctively checked Julian's. I saw him, blushing furiously, opening his eyes shyly. "Sister Cece," I fainted, "my troops are still intact." This troublemaker. I didn't know if it was the drug or the shock, but I was speechless. It was old Madame Lu who snorted coldly. A man and a woman, 7 years apart, alone in a room, clothes in disarray. "This is already unclean." The moment she said it, the room went dead silent. This old woman, to break off the engagement, she was really going all out. Did she not know that I had raised even Arthur? What's more, the top aristocratic circles in the capital are small. The families of those 20-odd children from back then are all related by marriage. This network covered more than half the people present. This old woman wasn't just chopping bamboo, she was taking the shoots too. Seeing this, someone whispered. These children all grew up on horseback. During those desperate times, they couldn't be concerned with such strict proprieties. I think they are all good children. Good children. Old Madame Lu retorted. The Grand Princess is noble, so this old woman dares not comment. But if a common girl did this, never mind this age, even if she were only 7. She should be thrown in the river and drowned to protect the family's honor. She must not have known that among those 20-odd children I took care of, there were 2 little girls. And it just so happened that the families of those 2 girls were present. Both of those girls were now happily married. If this old woman insisted she was right, her accusations would ruin their lives. So, the mother of one of those girls marched forward and slapped her. The speed was so fast no one could react. By the time the old madam realized what happened and tried to hit back, several other families had rushed forward and started beating her. The scene instantly descended into chaos. Seeing the fight was winding down, the eunuch sent by Arthur stepped in. He had just opened his mouth when a shoe hit him square in the face. After that, the Imperial Guard entered, and the situation was finally brought under control. When the palace servants helped old Madame Lu up from the floor, she was barely breathing. After everyone had taken their leave, my hidden guard came in to apologize. I rubbed my temples. What happened with the young heir apparent? Why was he involved? The guard's voice was low, but I could hear him grinding his teeth. Heir apparent Julian forced his way in. Old Madame Lu arrived too quickly. We couldn't stop him. I cleared my throat and sighed. Julian adjusted his clothes, leaned against the bed, and looked at me, replying intimately like a favored consort. "Here, Sister Cece." I nearly coughed up blood. I was worried about ruining his reputation and his marriage prospects. And what does he do? He deliberately jumps into this mess. What now? What am I supposed to do? Julian coolly climbed off the bed and slowly put on his boots. "Sister Cece, don't worry. Even after this, I won't pester you for a title. If Sister Cece doesn't want me, it's fine if your Leon never marries in this lifetime." This wasn't not pestering. This was backing me into a corner. This kid is so impulsive. But before I could speak, Julian's smile vanished. "Even if Sister Cece doesn't choose me, I sincerely hope you find a worthy husband. But that Alaric, what is he? He reaped all the benefits from his engagement to you, and now he wants to burn the bridge. And that Victor, what is he? He actually planned to find a beggar to humiliate you, just so a lowly creature like him could feel slightly more worthy of you. Let them see. The person they tried to defile is the same bright moon that others admire from afar. The one person others love but can never have, the one person others would jump into the mud just to protect, even with half a life. A youth's love is always fiery and brilliant. My heart hammered in my chest, and for a moment, my blood burned. I was being charmed by this brat again. Wait, I rethought. What does any of this have to do with you getting into my bed? Julian lifted his chin proudly. I just wanted them to see that you and I are now two grasshoppers on the same string. If they want to touch you even a little, they have to get through me first. So, like a puppy marking his territory. Back when Victor was in the former dynasty's prison, he had a son with a female inmate. That child became the leash to control him. After his release, Victor became the chief of the former dynasty's secret service. I had known this for a long time. He knew his position was dangerous and wanted to find a stepmother for his son. I had experience raising children, and my status meant that even if he was exposed, I could still protect his son. Therefore, I became his first choice. But even though I was this old, I was still royalty. Victor, now disabled, felt inferior. So he came up with the idea of ruining my reputation first. Once I was disgraced and no one else would marry me, he could get what he wanted. This plan also benefited the Duke Lu Manor, so they colluded. As for concubine Iris and Elara, they are distant relatives of Magnus Lee, the so-called heir of the former dynasty, who is currently plotting in the shadows. Elara originally had a marriage contract with Magnus Lee. If the former dynasty hadn't fallen, she would have been an imperial lady. It's just a twist of fate. So, these various factions with shared interests teamed up. They found a beggar for me, over 50, bald and scarred. When Julian saw that beggar, he drew his sword to kill him. It was only because my guards frantically stopped him that the beggar kept his life. When I saw that old beggar, I was silent for a long time. Honestly, I'm a person who values appearances. Even my father, Reginald, knows this, which is why his attempts to find me a husband always focused on handsome men. Julian cursed loudly. This was almost certainly that bastard Victor's idea. If he ever falls into my hands, I'll find 10 beggars for him and let him taste this humiliation. Victor's logic was that the filthier the person I lost my innocence to, the more grateful I would be when he, by comparison, came to propose. It was truly shameless. But compared to this, what worried me more was that the remaining spies from the former dynasty had indeed made their move. They had poisoned the largest water source on the outskirts of the capital, causing thousands to fall ill. The number of dead and injured had already surpassed 100. They also seized the opportunity to spread rumors, claiming the royal family had lost its virtue and that heaven was striking down a plague upon the people. Good. They were finally getting agitated. These troublemakers were in the shadows while I was in the light. Catching one would only alert the others, which was incredibly troublesome. I currently had a list of spies, but I knew Victor had another, more dangerous list. His own network, cultivated for years in the capital. I had originally planned to lure him into making a move at the Shanglin banquet, to follow the clues and unravel his network. Who would have thought, at the banquet, Victor did nothing but run his mouth. He didn't get his hands dirty at all. My aunt, Isabella, was busy coordinating the whole attack with the old madam of the Duke Lu Manor. They executed the entire plan perfectly. Brilliant, truly brilliant. She is my dearest blood relative, indeed. After the Shanglin banquet, Arthur was furious. He stripped the old madam of her noble title and decreed a formal reprimand. Every day, at the hour of Shen, he sent an old palace eunuch to stand outside the Duke's manor and curse her for a full hour. She was forced to kneel at the gate, listen to the entire tirade, and then give thanks. First beaten, then endlessly berated, and her title revoked, the old madam was a wreck. She looked much older as she came before me, trembling, and immediately tried to kneel. Your Highness, this commoner is guilty. It is my fault. Our Pan family only has a few women left. Must your Highness really drive us to extinction? How ridiculous. I helped the old madam up. In this whole affair, what part did I cause? I was in the palace mourning for over a month. I return home to find I don't even have a place to live. My father's concubine expects me to wait on her. My sister, who isn't even in the imperial registry, wants to throw me into a fire. My own aunt and the family I am engaged to conspire at a banquet, finding a diseased beggar to destroy my reputation. And now, all I want is to kick Elara out and marry her off, and that is what you call driving us to extinction. The old madam was speechless. I sighed. Old madam, I'm not being arrogant, but because these things happened to me, I can still speak to you calmly. If this had happened to anyone else, the Duke Lu Manor would have been overthrown long ago. Concubine Iris and Elara would have died and been resurrected countless times by now. Your Highness is truly magnanimous, the old madam said with a strained smile. I just wonder, what does your Highness want from this? See, the old woman was sharp. She saw at a glance that by choosing this moment to deal with Elara, I was making a move. I hesitated, then said, The matter with Alaric, I was at fault, but your family also benefited. Let's call it even. Your family does not want me, and I am not desperate to marry in. Once this immediate trouble is settled, I will personally request the annulment from His Majesty. But your family helping Victor and the remnants of the former dynasty stir up trouble, that is not a small matter. The poison in the water source, the livestock, not to mention the common people. There are nearly 1,000 casualties. You owe them an explanation. The old madam hemmed and hawed, trying to gloss it over, but she knew I had her cornered. Finally, she said resignedly, Your Highness, I am old. I never interfere in Victor's affairs. I cut her off. But you, old madam. She sat down heavily. If your Highness is here for this. Before she could posture, I spoke. Old madam, I have no patience. Think concubine Iris is currently in my hands. Elara is also in my hands. You, madam, are old but healthy. Concubine Iris, however, has been ill for a long time. Who knows how many days she has left? The old woman put on an air of experience. Your Highness is still young. One must know, in a negotiation, one should not show their hand too early. I smiled. In my territory, you follow my rules. Old madam, only those on equal footing get to negotiate. We are not. Besides, outsiders are never as important as family. After that conversation, I had another bargaining chip in my hand. The old madam subsequently went to see concubine Iris and Elara. The next day, after returning to her manor, she hanged herself. I must say the old madam was truly ruthless to herself. 1 foot out my door, the next she gives me her explanation, by forcing the death of the matriarch of her future grandson, in law's family. My marriage to Alaric was now thoroughly impossible. She didn't care about my promise. Because a promise in someone else's hands is as fickle as June weather, sun or rain, all depends on the sky's will. I did not appear at the old madam's funeral. I just sent condolences and went straight to find Victor. When we arrived, my aunt, Isabella, was blocking his courtyard like a mother protecting her chick. Old Madame Lou just died. I knew you would come. You were bound to come. Cece, the incident at the banquet, it was all my doing. If you are angry, you can hit me or curse me. But, on account that you are safe, and on account that Victor, he had his kneecaps carved out for you all. He is a cripple. Please, spare him, can't you? Julian interrupted in a snide voice. Those who know Victor is her husband's nephew. Those who don't would think he's the Grand Princess's actual son. I was wondering how a cripple like him dared to act so audaciously. It turns out he's just relying on the Grand Princess's power. Isabella was seething. Shut your mouth. In this whole affair, Cecilia lost her reputation, old Madame Lou lost her life, and you are the only one who benefited. You are the last person who deserves to speak. You think we don't know? You were the one who replaced that beggar in the room. What were you plotting? Do you really think everyone is blind? Being exposed, Julian only became more brazen. These intentions of mine were always meant to be announced to the world. Since the Grand Princess has seen through them, all the better. They were giving me a headache, so I ordered them gagged. Isabella looked at me in disbelief, screaming before the gag was in place. Cecilia Chen, are you mad? I am your aunt. So what if I gagged my own aunt? Her voice was the loudest. I glanced at Julian. He obediently leaned his head forward and opened his mouth wide. The guard rolled his eyes and stuffed the gag in firmly. Finally, quiet. I led a 5-year-old child through the gate. Brother Victor, this princess has brought your son. Unexpectedly, Victor was already waiting in the courtyard. When father and son met, the child cowered behind me. Victor looked crestfallen and clasped his hands. I have troubled your highness. It's a small matter. I sat at the stone table in front of him. The child sat beside me, and Julian automatically sat on my other side. Isabella tried to join, but my guard forced her back to the ground, smearing her with mud. Victor opened his mouth to speak, but just then, a young attendant burst from his room, only to be struck down by a volley of arrows. Blood sprayed everywhere. Isabella's eyes widened in horror. She tried to stand but was forced down again. Victor frowned. Your Highness, killing a man in my home, in front of a child, is that appropriate? Victor, is your child the only child? Are other people's children not? Among those thousands poisoned, how many were children? How many died before they were even born? And yet your son is too precious to see a drop of blood. In the long silence, I handed him a cup of tea. Victor took a small sip. I have one question for your Highness. How did you identify all the spies in the capital? You have nearly wiped them all out. Spies. No matter how deep they hide or how intricate their network, Their final purpose is one, to gather intelligence. The network below is a tangled mess, so this princess just needed to find the main thread at the top. Kai Feng of the Xiu Yiji is now my man. The Xiu Yiji was the secret intelligence agency of the former dynasty, their eyes and ears. Now, those eyes and ears are mine to use. Hunting spies from the bottom up is impossible, but from the top down, it is much, much easier. A strange light flashed in Victor's eyes. Your Highness is brilliant. A wise person always adapts to the times. But you, Victor, what was it all for? The passionate, righteous young man from all those years ago. Why did you betray us? To be honest, when my investigation led to him, I didn't want to believe it. Your Highness, is the Da Sheng of today, the Da Sheng we hoped for? Is it the Da Sheng you hoped for? The common people still have to sell their children and wives just to eat. Officials are still corrupt, bullying the populace. The new nobility has already forgotten their original intention. They live in silk and luxury, wasting money like water, walking the same old path as the dynasty we overthrew. Your Highness, the ruts of that fallen carriage are still fresh. It has only been a few years. Is a Da Sheng like this truly worth the lives our soldiers sacrificed for it? After he said this, even the gagged Isabella stopped struggling, staring at him in stunned silence. At first listen, his words seemed to make sense. Human nature is selfish. Corruption and dereliction of duty exist. This is related to the system, but also to the level of civilization and morality. I thought for a moment, then asked, how does the Da Sheng of today compare to the former dynasty? It is far superior? I asked again. Then why are you helping the former dynasty rebel? Your Highness, you don't understand, Victor said. It is because you have never met His Highness Magnus. I recalled a secret report mentioning that Magnus was a short man. I paused, then added, ah yes, a rather cunning short man. At this, Victor's brow furrowed. A person is valued for their virtue, appearance is merely external. Prince Magnus has great ambitions. A teenager, in his most formative years, captured and brainwashed. They used both the carrot and the stick. It's understandable he couldn't withstand it. My gaze drifted to his legs. He too was once tall and formidable. I spoke patiently. I admire your ideals, Victor, but I cannot approve of your methods. If, back when grandfather first rebelled, you had championed for a world ruled by all, that would be one thing. Then, it would be a test of ability. Whoever the people supported, whoever they despised, whoever took the stage, it would be fate. It would be the will of the people. But the world is at peace now. To stir up trouble at this moment only plunges the people back into misery. Victor, you use the world as your chessboard, but the common people cannot be your pawns. A dead chess piece returns to the box. A dead person never comes back. Victor closed his eyes. Your Highness was a kindred spirit. It seems you do not understand me. What I am doing today is a sin in the present, but a virtue for all time. Future generations will remember me. They will re-evaluate my rights and wrongs. The world belongs to the public, not the private. It is the people's world, not the world of the nobility. Honestly, for someone in his position to still care about the suffering of the people is a good thing. But the development of dynasties and civilization takes time. Ideals that are too lofty and detached from reality become catastrophes. It is like trying to teach calculus to a newborn baby. The baby not only won't understand, but will probably just pee in your face. For a baby at this stage, what is important is milk and sleep. It is the same for the people now. Magnus, who uses thousands of lies as pawns just to build momentum, he is absolutely not an enlightened ruler. Civilization, rules, and law must always be centered on human life. Victor's ideals may be grand, but Magnus is just a politician skilled in manipulation. Their partnership was destined to be a tragedy. In other words, Victor was psychologically manipulated by a master. After talking for so long, showing courtesy before resorting to force, I feel I did my utmost. In truth, I never intended to solve this with just words. I took the teacup from Victor's hand and poured the remaining liquid into the mouth of the child I had brought. Seeing Victor's face drain of color, I spoke. This tea. You drank it, and your son drank it. I did not. No one else did. Do you understand? Isabella, no longer caring about her gag, leaped up to shield Victor, glaring at me furiously. I reached over and pulled the gag from Julian's mouth. He immediately spat out. Oh, the mother then protects her chick. Is this Victor actually your secret lover? Both were bound, but Julian's mouth was free. They began struggling, headbutting each other like animals. I led the Lin family's child out of the courtyard. If they are to die, the father and son will die together. A benevolent person cannot command troops, and an emotional person can't achieve great things. The game of politics is inherently dirty. It is no place for compassion. At first, Victor didn't believe I would actually poison him. But as his body weakened, the symptoms were identical to the poison Magnus had used on the capital's water source. To be precise, this refined version was even more potent. Within a few days, he couldn't bear it. Wasted away, he was carried to my gate. "Your Highness, the child is innocent. Please, spare the child's life." I bowed to him in return. "And I beg you, spare the lives of thousands of common people." "But reform always requires bloodshed," he mumbled, blood leaking from his lips. My heart was only for the public good. Why won't heaven help me? It wasn't that heaven wouldn't help him. He simply followed the wrong man. Relying on schemes, using a woman's influence, harming innocent people. I said it before. That short guy was never going to be anything good. Victor handed over the antidote, but he refused to take it himself. He held on until the child had fully recovered, and only then, unable to endure any longer, did he let go and pass away. Half a month after his death, Magnus launched his uprising. His momentum was overwhelming. He recruited troops, won successive victories, and in just a few months, his army reached the outskirts of the capital. Magnus was incredibly smug, claiming the hearts of the people were with him. He set up camp and ordered Arthur to exit the city and kneel in surrender. I calculated the timing, dressed neatly, and went to the palace. "Let me be the one to deliver the letter of surrender." Arthur glanced at Aunt Isabella, who was standing beside him with her head bowed. "It is better to let Aunt go." Aunt Isabella's head snapped up. She pointed at herself in disbelief. "Me, I am to go?" Arthur gritted his teeth. "If it weren't for you, Aunt, how could a cripple like Victor have entered the court as an official? How could he have cultivated followers, rallied old officials, and stolen the military defense maps? I am only asking you to deliver a surrender letter. It is not as if I am ordering your execution." Aunt Isabella's voice grew faint, helpless. I am still your aunt. When you were plotting against my sister, did you remember you were my aunt? When you were defending Victor, did you remember? And now you still have the nerve to call yourself my aunt. Ha! Arthur had only recently learned the full details of the Shanglin banquet, and his anger was still fresh. But this sarcastic tone of his, I sighed and patted his hand. "You should spend less time with Julian. Try to learn some of his better qualities." Arthur gripped my hand in return. "Sister Cece, you don't have to go anywhere. Just stay here with me. If this fails, I will risk my life till you escape the encirclement." All right, stop arguing. I will deliver the surrender letter. I have been a beggar before. I am not afraid of their cold reception. I took the letter, affixed the imperial seal, and bid my farewell. "Take care. Wait for me to return, Sister Cece." Arthur, still unconvinced, hurried after me. "If you are afraid, then don't go. I will just tie up Aunt and send her." Aunt Isabella looked utterly dejected. "Why are you still dragging me into this?" Arthur rolled his eyes. "Because you cannot distinguish right from wrong. Keeping you around is utterly useless." These two were bickering like children. I waved my hand dismissively and left without looking back. Today was the third day Magnus was officially camped. When I arrived at his barracks, a large crowd gathered to stare. Concubine Iris and Alara also came out to watch. Oh, I forgot to mention, the moment Magnus rebelled, that mother-daughter pair fled to his side in the middle of the night. Out of respect for old Madame Lu's desperate attempts to secure a future for them, I had even sent one of my guards to reason with them. The guard was returned to me with his head bashed in. Now, seeing me, Alara was insufferably arrogant. Look at her. A citizen of a fallen kingdom, and she still has the nerve to put on the airs of a grand princess. Coming to deliver a surrender letter? Ha! When your mother's kingdom fell, she didn't forget to dress herself in gaudy clothes to seduce my father. I didn't see you two hiding your faces in shame. Weren't you both still dripping in gold and silver, running to find your new backer? Hearing me mock her mother, Alara raised her whip to strike me, but one of my guards stepped forward and blocked the blow. Alara, other people are aunts bitten, twice shy. You are aunts bitten, and immediately bitten again. You seem to have completely forgotten that I brought my guards with me. I may not be skilled in open combat, but while a spear is easy to dodge, a hidden arrow is not. Do you really think my guards are just for show? Do you really think you can guard me for a lifetime? Alara, enraged, cursed. Cecilia Chen, don't be so smug. Your arrogance won't last long. Magnus, who had been watching the spectacle from his main tent, now laughed and clapped. Grand Princess Chengping, forgive our lack of courtesy. Please, come in. I looked up at him. He was actually not bad looking. But his height, he truly was short. I suddenly understood why he enjoyed Victor's company. Victor was in a wheelchair, so when seated, he was definitively shorter than Magnus. That must have made him feel quite proud. Inside the tent, I observed Magnus for a long moment. Elora followed close behind, her eyes red, looking like she wanted to tear me apart. You wench. How dare you stare directly at His Majesty's dragon visage? Oh, I forgot, Magnus declared himself emperor when he rebelled. So Elora calling him, Your Majesty, isn't technically wrong. I turned my head away, but I couldn't stop his eyes from boring me. It was very uncomfortable, so I turned back. Alright, if you have something to say it. Stop staring. You won't make a flower bloom on my face. Magnus laughed. The Grand Princess is indeed as blunt as the rumors say. In that case, I will be direct. When my grand army enters the city, I want Arthur to perform the goat-leading ceremony. This short man wasn't just scheming and twisted, his bloodline must be impure. I stared at him darkly, saying nothing for a long time. Magnus sneered. No hurry, the Grand Princess can stay here and think it over. On the first day of my captivity, I was given no food. That night, I led my guards to a small hill and began setting off fireworks. At first, Magnus was so disturbed he couldn't sleep. He sent orders for me to stop. I simply replied that after the city fell, I intended to die anyway. Couldn't I watch fireworks one last time before my death? If he couldn't even grant this, the Da Sheng officials would surely think this new majesty was narrow-minded and would not treat defectors well. In that case, they would just defend the city to the death. The capital's walls are high and its moats are deep, they could easily hold out for several more months. It would just mean troubling his soldiers to live in tents for a few more months. While Magnus was used to hardship, Elara had been pampered since birth. How could she endure such conditions? After she whispered in his ear, Magnus suppressed his rage, merely saying he would make me look good tomorrow, and then went to sleep with his beauty. After that, I comfortably set off fireworks for the entire night. The soldiers patrolling the camp initially came over to watch, but soon, aside from the unit assigned to guard me, no one else paid any attention. By the next morning, Magnus was bound and thrown in front of me. He was completely stunned. He couldn't understand. He had clearly made it all the way to the capital. How, in a single night, had he become a prisoner? Before I even left Lu Mountain, I was already corresponding with Kai Feng. Any intelligence Victor passed on, Kai Feng saw it first. Those military defense maps, naturally, they were passed to Magnus by Kai Feng. Therefore, they were fake. But the fake maps only served to fuel Magnus's determination to claim the throne. The former dynasty had a long history, but its collapse was swift, leaving many rebel forces scattered among the populace. Uprooting the spies in the capital was hard enough. Hunting down these remnants one by one would be exhausting and time-consuming. It was far better to let someone else rally them all into one place. Magnus truly did not disappoint. Then there was my father, Reginald. He did indeed march out to suppress a rebellion, but my messenger caught up with him. That message, about wanting a garden and disciplining a concubine, was not the critical intelligence. The real message was to change the objective of his entire campaign. His plan shifted from suppressing a rebellion to eliminating bandits. In the past few years of dynastic change, local prefectures had been overwhelmed. Countless bandit strongholds had sprung up. Seizing this opportunity, my father launched surprise attacks, eliminating numerous strongholds along his path. When he finally encountered Magnus, he merely feigned a few battles before fleeing in defeat. But my father's staged retreats made Magnus dangerously overconfident. He assumed the Da Sheng generals had lost their will to fight, that they were weak and brittle. This spurred him to confidently declare himself emperor and begin his march. Along his route, I ordered the cities to put up a brief resistance and then abandon their posts, allowing our soldiers to disguise themselves as commoners and join Magnus's growing army. I could not engage him in populated areas, the civilians would be harmed. I had to lead him to the burial ground I had personally chosen for him. He believed he was recruiting troops, his reputation swelling, that the people were flocking to his banner. In reality, more than half of his recruits were my Da Sheng soldiers. We used Magnus's supplies to feed Da Sheng's army, all the way to the capital's gates. These few towns, this was the place I intended to bury him. I had planned to evacuate the civilians first to avoid casualties, but unexpectedly, the so-called plague broke out. But because of this plague, I had the perfect excuse to move everyone out, claiming the area was decimated by the disease. Magnus moved his army in without the slightest suspicion. The poison, after all, was his doing. It was a ploy he designed to legitimize his rebellion. He was the true Hagen, the son of heaven, and his presence here, unharmed, was proof that the mandate of heaven was his. Of course, he wasn't completely fearless. To prevent any residual toxins in the water, he even deliberately had his men sprinkle antidote into the water sources, assuming that made them safe. But medicine can just as easily be poison. The antidote he so cleverly spread had, from the very beginning, been designed to mix with a compound I had crit in the water much earlier, creating a new, synergistic toxin. Why did I make this trip myself? It was to secretly distribute the true antidote to my own men. The dazzling fireworks, roaring all night, the thick smell of gunpowder masked the stench of blood, and the thunderous explosions drowned out the clash of steel and the faint cries for help in the dark. Magnus held Alara, enjoying a night of pleasure, never suspecting his world would be turned upside down by dawn. Under the cover of darkness, Julian led his men, easily capturing or killing all of Magnus's generals. Anyone who resisted had their throat cut. With this, the chaotic period of regime change was finally, truly settled. I sat on the hillside, watching the sun slowly rise, and let out a long breath. It was finally over. Once everything settled down, my father, Reginald, was still out fighting bandits, seemingly unconcerned that the capital was in disarray. Arthur came to Prince Jin's manor in disguise to have a hot pot with me. Julian was busy washing vegetables, while Aunt Isabella brought over some fresh carp. The broth bubbled. Arthur, swishing a piece of food, said, "That Alaric came to the palace today to express his gratitude. He thanked me for granting him such a wonderful marriage." After a pause, Arthur asked me, "Sister Cece, giving up your fiancé like that, do you truly have no regrets? Alaric seems quite talented. The Duke Manor, aside from that muddle-headed old madam, is quite astute." This time, when the remnants of the former dynasty fled, the Lou Manor simply shut its doors and stayed out of the chaos. Because of this, Arthur intends to use them as a positive example to show the world his magnanimity. After Alaric and I annulled our engagement, he came to the palace to request permission to marry the daughter of a minor official, claiming they had been in love for years. Arthur asked for my opinion, and knowing I truly had no feelings for Alaric, he granted the marriage. But he was still worried about me, so he came to check. Julian handed me a cup of water, only for Arthur to snatch it away. Julian looked like he wanted to hit him, but remembering Arthur was the emperor, he redirected his anger to Aunt Isabella. "Sister Cece, are you and I really that close? What face do you have to show up here?" Aunt Isabella pointed to the fish. "We brought gifts. Unlike you, who comes empty-handed." "So what if I'm empty-handed? Sister Cece likes me anyway. Who cares if you brought gifts?" Arthur ignored their squabbling and just looked at me anxiously. "Alaric is married to someone else. What is going to happen to your marriage, Sister Cece?" "Then I just won't get married." I dipped some vegetables into the sesame sauce and mumbled, "The business in the capital is almost finished. I won't interfere in the rest. I will just peacefully go back to my farming." Arthur sighed. "You can't just farm for your entire life. When I'm old, I'll find some young people and teach them how to farm." Julian suddenly spoke up. "Sister Cece, I'm young." After he said that, both Arthur and Isabella froze. A long moment passed before Arthur said reluctantly, If it really comes to that, when second uncle returns, I will ask him." He looked at me. "Sister Cece, what do you think?" "What do I think?" Free labor just delivered itself to my door. What else is there to think about? I'll keep him for now. We'll take it one step at a time. Epilogue: Julian's perspective. From the moment I was born, I was on a battlefield. I heard my father was originally a pork butcher. Ever since I can remember, my mother would scold him in front of me, saying he should have just stuck to selling pork instead of following Mr. Chen to rebel. Now, his head was always on the line, living in constant fear. My mother just wanted a stable life. She had no strong opinions of her own. That year, when the Imperial Army attacked Pi City, my mother didn't know how to escape. She just stuffed some jewelry into my robes and carried me to Sister Cece's home. The Chen family's second mistress was a soft-hearted person, so she took us along as she fled. Soon after, the pursuing army caught up. The second mistress lured the enemy leader into a room, pushed over an oil lamp, and lit a fire. Under the cover of night, our group followed Sister Cece. She had a plan, leading us through winding, dangerous paths, but miraculously, she led us safely through the Imperial Army's encirclement. But she was just too exhausted. That day, she was so tired she lost control and simply passed out. After she became unconscious, the group listened to my mother. Within a single day, we were surrounded. At that moment, my mother was wiping her tears as she told me, "Lion, your mother is useless. I can't protect you." She shoved me into Sister Cece's arms. "Only by following Sister Cece will you have a chance to live. You are still so young. You must be obedient. Only if you are obedient will they not abandon you." Then, she grabbed 2 other women, and they ran screaming up the mountain, luring all the pursuing troops away. Sister Cece was unconscious for a day and a night. When she woke up and looked at me, her eyes held a flash of utter despair. But she still took me, along with her 2 younger cousins. Later, we regrouped with the others. We were a group of children pretending to be beggars, stripping clothes from the dead to wear, searching for a way to live among corpses. We scoured every alley, and when cornered, we fought wild dogs for scraps. I was too small, and one time, I became gravely ill. She carried me to find a doctor. On the way, we ran into 2 vagrants. I think that was the first time she killed someone. She stumbled out of that small alley carrying me, vomiting, shaking, and weeping. She thought I was delirious and couldn't see anything, but I knew. I saw it all. She said she was crying because she had fallen, that she was just too weak. I knew that wasn't true. I wiped away her tears, they were warm. I said, "Sister Cece, put me down. I'm too small. I'm just a burden." She refused, just carrying me, sobbing, all the way to the medicine shop's door. After that, I survived and I followed her. We lived on that mountain for 5 incredibly difficult years. The world always praises Sister Cece for being so strong, for being able to lead more than 20 children to survive on that mountain. But I know, back then, she was just a child herself. She cried often, hiding where no one could see. When she cried, she wanted her mother. She wanted to run away. But every time, she just couldn't bring herself to leave. She would come back and continue, day after day, leading this group of children to find a way to live. She begged for food, she sold goods, she led us in farming and hunting. The wounds on her hands would heal, only to be torn open again. In that long, endless darkness, where we couldn't see any light, she became the bright moon in all of our hearts. Before Grandfather Chen passed, the capital was infiltrated by spies from the former dynasty. Even the palace had their eyes and ears. The old Li dynasty, with its deep roots, was a master of this game. We had captured and interrogated some, but it only made the remaining spies hide even deeper. They wanted to make a move during the change of power. What was their plan? What were their exact moves? We knew nothing. We couldn't just arrest the entire capital and question them one by one. We didn't have that kind of time. But then, unexpectedly, my grandfather's main stronghold in Pai City was attacked by the imperial court, and the families there had to flee. "I have ordered the capital to implement the travel pass system," Grandfather Chen had said. "Cece will understand." And Sister Cece did understand. She entered the capital after Grandfather's passing, staying in the palace first, silently pulling out several critical enemy agents. Then she returned to Prince Jin's manor, deliberately stirring up a storm to create a diversion, and personally baited the hook to lure out Victor. Sister Cece said, "They have to make a move. A wolf hiding in the darkness will silently tear out your throat. But an action always makes a sound, no matter how small. That sound will become the key to breaking the entire stalemate." After everything settled, I farmed with Sister Cece for 2 years in the prince's manor. My father felt this couldn't continue. He personally came to our door to speak with Sister Cece. Only then did she agree to return with us. My father wiped the cold sweat from his brow and clapped my shoulder. "Your Sister Cece, you chose her yourself. Since you have chosen her, you must treat her well for the rest of your life. If anything should happen in the future, never mind the imperial family. The collective spit of all the old court officials in this capital will be enough to drown you. Nothing will happen. Sister Cece is the one I chose. I have seen her step out of a mud pit, covered in blood. I have seen her in luxurious robes, setting off fireworks all night in the heart of an enemy camp. I have seen every version of her, and I love every version of her. This story illuminates how profound strength cultivates profound love. Cecilia's resilience, turning tragedy into a means of survival for others, made her an anchor in the storm. Her intelligence and compassion became a light. The sweet, unwavering devotion she earned from Julian shows that the most powerful love isn't just given, it is inspired by a spirit that refuses to be broken and chooses to protect others, even in the darkest of times. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like,